have some breaking news to bring you now on US singer Chris Brown, who has pleaded guilty in a London court.
One headline, thousands of confused fans, and one question nobody seemed to have the right answer to. Chris Brown in court. The moment those pictures started flooding social media, everything went into overdrive. People started asking, wait, did Chris Brown get arrested again? Is the tour over? Is tomorrow's concert canceled? What happened this time? And honestly, I don't blame people for asking. Because if all you saw was the headline, you'd probably think something brand new had happened. But here's the crazy part. When I actually looked into the case, the truth turned out to be completely different. So before we jump to conclusions, let's slow everything down, because this story didn't actually start today. It started years ago. Take a look at this Chris. Calm, focused, walking into court with his legal team. If you didn't know the full story, you'd probably assume the worst, and that's exactly what happened online. Within minutes, posts started going viral. Headlines were everywhere. Comment sections exploded. Everybody had an opinion, but very few people were explaining why he was actually there. Some fans immediately got worried. Others started saying, "Not again." Some even thought this was a completely new criminal case. But hold on, because that's where the internet got ahead of itself. Now, think about this for a second. Just days ago, Chris Brown was doing exactly what he's been doing all summer, selling out arenas, dancing for thousands of fans, performing night after night on tour. Everything looked normal, which made today's court appearance feel even more shocking. So here's the question everybody wants answered. Why would somebody who's in the middle of one of the biggest tours of the year suddenly be walking into a courtroom? Was it a new arrest? Was the tour about to stop? Or was there something the internet completely missed? Well, the answer takes us all the way back to London. Because today's hearing wasn't about something that happened yesterday. It wasn't about something that happened this week. In fact, it all goes back to an incident in London back in 2023.
Oh, them niggas getting it in over there.
And once I realized what today's hearing was actually about, everything starts making a lot more sense. But trust me, what happened inside that courtroom today changed the direction of this case in a way many fans weren't expecting. Alright, now let's rewind this story, because if you only saw today's headlines, you probably missed the biggest detail of them all. Chris Brown wasn't standing before a judge because of a brand new incident. Today's hearing was connected to a case that's been hanging over him since 2023. And once I realized that, everything I thought I knew about today's story completely changed.
The case goes all the way back to a London nightclub. Prosecutors allege that music producer Abraham Dio was injured during an incident inside the club. Since then, the legal process has been moving through the courts. Fast forward to today, and this is where things took a major turn. Inside the courtroom, Chris Brown pleaded guilty, but here's the part a lot of people didn't understand. He pleaded guilty to affray. That's a public order offense involving unlawful or threatening violence. It was not a guilty plea to the more serious assault charges that many people have been talking about online. In fact, prosecutors dropped those more serious charges as part of how the criminal case moved forward. And that's a huge detail that got lost once the headlines started flying. See, this is why it's always worth reading beyond the headline. One post says, Chris Brown pleaded guilty. Another post leaves out what he pleaded guilty to. Suddenly, everybody thinks they know the whole story, but the details matter. And just like you'd expect, fans immediately split into different camps. Some people were relieved the legal process has finally moved forward. Others were still asking questions about the case. And then, one question started showing up over and over again. Hold on, what does this mean for the tour? Honestly, that's the exact question I asked too, because Chris Brown isn't sitting at home. He's in the middle of a massive tour that's been selling out arenas. So, was everything about to come to a stop? Here's where things get interesting. Even after today's court appearance, Chris Brown is still expected to continue touring. At the time of making this video, there hasn't been any announcement that the upcoming shows have been canceled. So for fans who already bought tickets, that's the update many of them were hoping to hear. But trust me, the courtroom wasn't the end of today's story, because once fans realized the tour was still moving forward, the conversation online changed completely. Some people celebrated, others had mixed feelings, and a few comments really caught my attention. Let's take a look at how the internet reacted after the news broke.
You know what really stood out to me after following this story all day? It wasn't just the courtroom. It wasn't even the guilty plea. It was how one headline completely changed the mood of the internet. For a few hours, people were convinced the worst had happened. Some fans thought Chris Brown had been arrested again. Others believed the tour was about to fall apart. And before anyone had the full picture, social media was already writing the ending. Then the facts started coming out. People realized this wasn't a brand new case. They learned today's hearing was connected to an incident from 2023. They discovered that the legal update was more detailed than the first headline suggested. And just like that, the conversation started changing. One thing I noticed, Chris Brown never looks like someone ready to walk away from the stage. He walked into court, he handled the legal process, and as things stand right now, the tour is still expected to continue. That was probably the biggest relief for thousands of fans who already have tickets waiting. Think about how quickly life can change. In the morning, you're standing inside a courtroom. Less than 24 hours later, you're preparing to stand in front of thousands of screaming fans again. That's a reminder that for artists at this level, the spotlight never really switches off. Whether you follow Chris Brown since the beginning or you just started paying attention because of today's headlines, one thing is clear: his career continues to spark conversations. Sometimes it's because of the music, sometimes it's because of the performances, and sometimes it's because of moments like today. Now all eyes turn to the next stop on the tour. Fans will be watching, the media will be watching, and after everything that's happened today, that next performance might be one of the most talked about shows of the entire tour. Now I want to hear from y'all. When you first saw those headlines this morning, what did you think had happened? Did you assume this was a brand new case, or did you already know it was connected to an older incident? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, we don't just react to headlines. We slow things down, we separate facts from the noise, and we break down the full story together. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on that notification bell, because the moment another big celebrity story breaks, you already know where to find me. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and keep sipping. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.